Again, we're going a beautiful place with this, a beautiful place to love of people. We're still answering Kylie's question, speaking into it. Then we're going to get into the 4-12-4, but this is a vital, fundamental piece to begin with. What if we could love all people unconditionally and still have boundaries? So in talking to strangers, Mr. Gladwell assesses a myriad of dynamics, which include how Bernie Madoff did what he did, and how there was someone who the entire time that Bernie Madoff was operating was reporting his conduct to the SEC that turned a complete blind eye to it. I had the privilege of turning in the largest Ponzi schemer of the history of South Florida, Scott Rothstein, who's doing 45 years in federal prison. And in that dynamic, he had pictures of him and the governor at that time of Florida, presidential candidate John McCain, who he was speaking in front of. He blew out the birthday candles on Governor Chris' birthday cake, and everybody was afraid to think that something may be wrong with Madoff, with Scott Rothstein. Malcolm Gladwell talks about Jerry Sandusky at Penn State and the horrific abuse that transpired there, and how, again, everyone's like, well, I mean, he's a great guy. I couldn't possibly think that something is really going on wrong here. And also talking about the doctor that worked with, the fraudulent doctor that worked with gymnasts and was sexually abusing young girls predominantly in front of their parents, creating a false examination profile for back problems that was sexually abusive. Crazy. Abused 2,000 girls. 75% of them, or some huge number, in front of their parents, because everybody just defaulted to truth. And so what Mr. Gladwell talks about is like, what if we didn't default to truth? We don't default to lying, but we hold neutral space in assessing in our listening. We call it level 5 listening. Neutral space where people are telling us, but not out of blame and judgment. Now let's come back to that, right? So, and how this ties into humility. What
it's called Duped, Truth Default Theory and Social Science of Lying and Deception by Timothy R. Levine.
Yeah, one more time, Frina. Say one more time.
It's Duped, Truth Default Theory and the Social Science of Lying and Deception by Timothy R. Levine.
Yeah, and this isn't Mr. Levine's book isn't theory. It's all kinds of studies on lying. It's wild. Now you go, this is a little dark. It's not dark. I'm a student of Tony Robbins with immense gratitude, and what Mr. Robbins says is, don't make it worse than it is, but don't make it better than it is. Make it what it is, so we could deal with it. If you want, Adam Gugino, congratulations, brother, lost 40 pounds and gained 80 pounds on his bench press. And Adam was in terrible shape, right? He was in decent shape, right? You know, before he was not the best shape of his life. The brother lost 40 pounds, increased by 80 pounds his bench, because he didn't make it worse than it was. He wasn't beating himself up, but he didn't make it better than it was. He just made it what it was and said, I want to become an animal when we go to Grand Cayman from Blinded Group Influence to go with 100 amazing people. And I want to be in amazing shape. I want to be in the best shape of my life. I'm going to go get it. So he made it as it was. So what we're talking about is like, let's deal with it as it is. And so humility, modesty, assessment, judgment. So humility, we propose, what if? Humility means not to make something better than it is, and not to make something worse than it is, right? Don't make it better than it is. Don't make it worse than it is in terms of human beings. Everybody's equal. What if everybody in humility is the same? What if even a serial killer is as wonderful as Mother Teresa in terms of her worthiness of love, her worthiness of having a relationship with her higher power, call it God, the universe, whatever it is, equally worthy, and we're all just people engaged in acts of love or cries for help. Go, that's a big statement. We can unpack it for an hour, but what if that's an amazing way to live? You go, dude, are you out of your mind? Those people have to be locked up for the rest of their life. Yes, I agree. I didn't say that's not the case, but we can love people anyway and not judge them, which is distinct from assessing, hey, is this person, is that an act of love, or is that a cry for help? And why might they be doing what they're doing? Is an act of love a cry for help? Had they secretly declared me an enemy? Robert Greene, 48 Laws of Power. There are people who live that like it's a Bible, even if they don't know the book or not. Are they like 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson? Or are they like 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene? I ask myself that question about everybody I interact with. And everybody isn't that all the time. So some people are 48 Laws of Power in 1 out of 25 different scenarios and profiles in their life. And some people are 1 out of 25 in the Jordan Peterson side of higher vibrational dynamics, confronting that which must be confronted. And some people are playing a secret game of dark concealment and chess versus where we're open and vulnerable and courageous and forthcoming. So the modesty piece, as it ties into humility, and we'll wrap this all up in the next 90 seconds, the modesty piece is, what if humility is a virtue and modesty is a sin? What if one is good and one is suboptimal? And what modesty means, if it was Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback in NFL history, who, by the way, I wasn't a fan of because I was a Jet fan who beat up on my Jets all the time, or let's go with Michael Jordan. I wasn't a Michael Jordan fan. He beat up on my Knicks all the time. But Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, the greatest of the greatest imaginable. And what if they were like, Michael Jordan's like, I'm not that great a basketball player. I don't know. I'm just kind of like everybody else. And what if he showed up on his teams that way and didn't cause leadership and be the person that said, give me the ball when the game is on the line to make the plays and do the things? Same thing for Tom Brady. What if Tom Brady pretended that he was the same level of importance on that team as everyone else? Just not true. So there's things that team did, the New England Patriots, to protect him physically, to put their own bodies at risk, because Tom Brady was the most valuable player. He wasn't a better human, but he was the most valuable player on the team. And in sports, there's a pretty clear assessment mechanism for how that works. And in business, there's also a pretty clear one in certain respects, in certain places, but in a lot of places that gets all like lost in the sauce. And it becomes one and the same thing that, well, we are not being humble unless we're being falsely modest. I disagree. I believe false modesty is lying. Michael Jordan's mother, check out Air, new movie made Ben Affleck, Jason Bateman, Matt Damon, about the Michael Jordan story. Michael Jordan's mother had incredible humility, but zero false modesty. And when it was proposed to her that Michael Jordan would be given by Converse this unbelievable gift by Converse, that he would, like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and there's one other player, I forget the third player, he would become the fourth. And there would be this pantheon of players that Michael Jordan was going to be invited into. And Converse is like, and we're the number one sneaker company already. And we have the three best guys, Bird, Magic Johnson, and a third. And the response from Michael Jordan's mother was, thank you. So what you're telling me is you're going to make my son one of four. So let me tell you something. My son is one of one. And my son doesn't need Converse to sell him. Or quite frankly, Converse, he doesn't need the NBA to sell him either. My son is going to sell the NBA, and he's going to sell that shoe that he decides to put on. So Nike ends up like, we got the deal, and they are going to pay Michael Jordan $250,000. His mother says, that sounds amazing. Thank you. And we want 5% of every shoe. And this guy, Sonny, I think his last name is Vaccaro. Sonny Vaccaro's like, this is crazy. How could we possibly do this? Like, Mr. Jordan, we can't. There's no way. This isn't how it's done. And she said, well, this is how it's done. And if we're going to agree, we're going to share value with integrity. And you know who my son is. You said that. And I know who my son is. And we both know he's the most valuable player in the world. And there's never going to be, or there isn't anybody like him. And there's never been. And there will not be during his career. And so with that value assessment, with zero false modesty, right? Complete stepping into integrity, his value, but total humility. It wasn't like my son's a better person. It wasn't like my son is better than you. It was my son is this valuable because of his persona, charisma, identity, leadership, basketball skill set. And because Mrs. Jordan wasn't falsely modest, was still humble, she was respectful, but precise and direct. She was empathetic, respectful, but precise and direct. Michael Jordan made $93 million playing basketball and something like $1.5 billion with his relationship with Nike. So when we think about humility, it's that we're not better or less than anybody. Modesty is saying that we're actually less skilled in whatever the area than somebody else when it's just not true, which is lying and hiding. And the judgment of people is like, hey, Adam's a good guy, Adam's a bad guy. Fernando's significance driven, or Fernando's certainty driven, or, Fernando's heart centered. Like that's even a judgment, right? Like he's just an amazing person, like still a judgment of a person versus an assessment of someone, which is, Adam, my experience with Adam is he shows up with his heart so often. It's an assessment. Adam's conscientiousness, his work effort, his effort and work, his transparency is tremendous, positive, beneficial, accelerating. That's assessing. Tom Brady's ability to throw the football is amazing. Michael Jordan's ability to lead on the court, incredible. His competitive energy is phenomenal. These are all assessments versus judgment of people. And it's rooted again back in assessing, hey, is this an act of love or just a cry for help? And when we identify patterns of cries for help, we can begin to identify boundaries. What are some cries for help? Well, her murder would be like a big example, and all the crimes, theft, burglary, illegal drug dealing, cries for help, right? But cries for help could also be lying, concealment. It could be taking identity, relationship capital. It could be trying to take teammates with unique skill. It could be trying to defraud people out of their money, like Scott Rothstein. It could be when you just want to feel better than someone else and you have to put them down to pick yourself up, right? That would be another example of a cry for help. What we don't define as cries for help, and this is massively critical in your influence, what we don't define is what if you're in a group dynamic and there's people in the group dynamic that are false, misportraying you, that they're engaged in acts that are aggressive, that are misportraying. Notice we didn't say they're bad people, we didn't say they're terrible people, but they're engaged in harmful activity towards you. You have every right with empathy, respect, precision, directness to confront them. And when you confront them and they don't do anything about it and they're continuing the behavior, you have every right to protect and defend yourself. Just like if somebody was breaking into your house and stealing your jewelry out of the jewelry box. Because if somebody's affecting your identity, your relationship capital, just like your monetary capital or your teammates, their energy, their perspective, their certainty of the alignment with the team, that cancerous dynamic for some of us that have, a degree of affluence and means, I'd much rather somebody steal $100,000 out of a safe in my house than somebody taint my identity falsely in a space where I have deep relationships, because they are causing far more harm for me, maybe for some of you, many of you, than if they stole $100,000. Oddly enough, our culture isn't as present to that because of, back to Malcolm Gladwell, what he discusses in Talking to Strangers, how we default to truth and feel like we need to prove someone has ill intent, like we're in a court of law. And what Malcolm Gladwell talks about is we're not in a court of law. We're in the world. And people lie all the time. People do beautiful things all the time. They do both. And sometimes they're doing mixed things. So as we're out there building and causing and causing acceleration, this piece, these parts are vital to understand. And what these lead into now, and the 4 steps, 12 indispensable elements for energy we'll get to in a second, is what tonight is all about. Because I thought people who marketed and sold were terrible. I judged people who are marketers and salespeople. As I mentioned, I was going blind. My grandfather was blind, and my mom thought I was going to be broke and blind. And not my grandfather, but a bunch of other people in my family were alcoholics. So we had blind, broke alcoholics. That was the pattern for most of the people in my family. We had double-digit people with retinitis pigmentosa and relatives that I knew. And everybody I knew in my family, except my grandfather, who was blind, was also broke and an alcoholic. And I was scared out of my mind. I didn't want to market. I didn't want to sell because I thought it was fraudulent. I thought it was, you had to lie and manipulate people. It was dark. So instead, I went to law school. Now that may sound funny. Like, you're like, wait, so you want to be in integrity, so you don't want to market or sell, but become a lawyer? Dude, you out of your mind? But I actually believe that. And so I went to law school. I graduate law school, and I find out that law is a business. I didn't have business people in my family. I had no idea. And I'm like, wait, what? Law is a business? I thought whoever was the best lawyer, like whomever is the best athlete, then they just do well and people find them and they make money. And I didn't realize it didn't work that way. In fact, the best lawyers worked for the best business developers. And I was horrified. I'm like, I wish I knew this before I acquired $100,000 in debt from law school. And now I'm screwed. What am I going to do? I'm $100K in debt. I got the best job I could possibly get out of law school, making just about the most money in the state of New Jersey at the time, $62,000, one of the top starting salaries. And I'm like, I'm only going to get cost of living increases basically for the next decade unless I become exactly what I didn't want to become, a marketer and a business developer. So I quit my job at one of New Jersey's most premier law firms in 1997. And I started my own law firm. And I start reading. I found the work of Tony Robbins. I mentioned I could never pay Tony Robbins for what he's done in my life if I had 25 lifetimes, beyond comprehension. And oddly enough, Tony Robbins was the person who turned me on the topic of tonight. I went to a seminar of his in 1998 called The Competitive Edge. And that seminar was about influence. And I didn't even think that influence was a thing. I thought weightlifting was a thing. I thought hitting a baseball was a thing. I thought singing a song or guitar or an egg or a pizza was a thing. But I didn't think that influence was a thing. And when I came to discover that influence was a thing, that day with Tony Robbins in the Madison Square Garden Theater, when Tony was filled, the room was filled with mostly network marketers, not belittling that. Coaching didn't even really exist yet. So it was a lot of real estate agents and network marketers. And they were all cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over Tony. And they were more fans than they were actualizers and implementers. That's not judging them. That's talking to 20 people there that day and where they were in their business and what's happening. It was a fascinating time because Tony's work was so powerful. And I saw so many people who were just living on the energy, but I don't think that they were really absorbing and implementing what he was talking about. So when I left that day, I said, influence is a thing. And truth be told, I didn't love everything that Tony shared about it. He used words like closing, and it just that word sat in a funny way for me. But he gave me a model and a framework, an idea that influence was a thing. And it was life-changing. I couldn't be more grateful. And I began to take that influence and do lots of things with it that I learned from people like Jay Abraham, Jerry Spence, one of the most famous attorneys in the history of America. And in a little under 2 years, I built a 40-person law firm. And for some people, that may not sound like anything. For the lawyers here, they're like, wait, you built a 40-person law firm a little over 2 years out of law school? And the answer is yeah, with no money, with no advertising, with no partners. And they were all employees. They weren't contractors. And it was unbelievable. And most of the people I knew had 1, 2, 3-person law firms. They were struggling. They were just always saying it was so difficult to practice law. And it wasn't. And I couldn't believe it. The first year was really hard. I wanted to quit every single day. But once I moved out of the arduous stage into momentum and abundance, it was wild to see what was really going on. And then I started to notice that this influence thing we're talking about was a marketing, selling, managing, leading, recruiting, fundraising, for profit and not for profit mechanism. And it applied to social situations or sports coaching, which is leadership. It applied to the practice of law. And I was going up against people who were practicing law for 2 decades or 3 decades. And I was out of school for 2 years. And some of the most prominent attorneys in New Jersey I started to go up against. And they were like, kid, I'm going to crush you. And they were doing all of these surface level, suboptimal, easily seen through tactics that would be much more cries for help than acts of love. Or isn't law supposed to be a battle? No. Law is supposed to be a pursuit of the truth. Most lawyers don't practice that way, but I would always start every relationship saying, hey, we're going to really seek truth and equity for our clients, or do you practice differently? And I would know very quickly by the response to that question, like, don't tell me what to do. I would know where we're going. And so I put on a different hat. And I suggest that as you market, sell, and partner, that you're assessing, is this person an integrous influence person? Or is this person a zero-sum game person? Like, do they come together and say, hey, let's sit on the same side of the table. Let's not act like we're in a Persian bazaar and say, I want 10 when I'll accept one. Like, are they like that? Or are they desiring to make this be win-win for 1 + 1 = a ton, not 1 + 1 = I win, right? And that assessment up front, not a judgment of people, but an assessment, you're listening to that behavior, going to save you a lot of money, a lot of heartache. So this begins for me, and I'm accelerating. I'm doing something we call ecosystem immersion, which is not the topic of tonight. I'm speaking in front of Chiropractic Society, and all of a sudden we're the council for the New Jersey State Chiropractic Society. There's guys 20 years my senior who are hating on me at every level. They're trying to destroy me. And it was wild times. The dynamic of how business is approached by some people is truly fascinating and saddening at the same time. But this skill set that we're talking about tonight empowers you, whether you're an insurance salesperson, an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're a medical doctor, a surgeon. We represent tons of surgeons across the country now. We're working in 38 states. Whether you are someone who's in coaching, training, speaking, authoring, whatever it is that you're doing in the world, this same, excuse me, this same model causes yes. Adam Gagina, by the way, is here, managed 100 million phone calls a year. Come on, dude. 100 million phone calls, a real number. A real number. 500-person sales team. These people were on the phone communicating nonstop, continuously. And Adam built that team from 0 people on a folding chair with folding tables for a solar company doing $3 million in revenue. Took them to Inc. 500, 3 consecutive years, fastest growing companies in America. Took them to $750 million before leaving that space to do this, because he didn't believe in the integrity of what he was doing and what the space was like. Not what he was doing, but what the company was beginning to operate like. And I don't mean they were doing fraudulent things in solar, just not how they related to people. Cries for help, not acts of love. Okay. So taking us back to when I first left that Tony seminar back in 1998, I was obsessed, and I think obsession is a fair word, or at the very least passionate, with figuring out how to bring truth forward. Because the yeses I wanted to create were the yeses that should happen. And so often yeses don't happen because of a very simple truth. There's a war going on between our survival brain and our higher self at all times. Our survival brain, our higher self are at war. They're at war for me. They're at war for you. They're at war for everyone. And our survival self feels like prey, like we are prey and someone else is a predator whenever yes becomes at stake. So as soon as we believe yes is at stake, we feel like prey. The most Zeus-oriented people, Tony Robbins, Oprah Winfrey, Donald Trump, Warren Buffett, ask them for something, to do something, and watch how quickly their certainty drops and they retreat, because we live in a world and a culture where we want to please people, want to make people happy, and we're afraid to say no. So we get really uncomfortable and uncertain, most people, 99.999% of the population, when yes or no becomes at stake, right? Now, that was super present for me. And so I wanted to figure out a way, a mechanism that was no longer an issue for me and other people, but not a way where we pitched, hooked, or closed anyone. Footnote, I worked with a team from Aflac about 15 years ago. And this Aflac team, wonderful people. And I said, hey, who's a closer in the group? Who's a closer in the group? Like, who are the closers in the room? And like 3 hands shot up in the room. There's like 100 people in the room. And I said, amazing. Tell me why you're a closer. Because I make it happen. I get the deal done. I get the check. I said, amazing. And how would you feel if I closed your mother? Immediate certainty drop. And I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you. But I'm talking about the power of a different way. And if you heard me at the end of this conversation, the microphone was open. I asked the gentleman at Aflac, I'll ask you here tonight. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, Tink? I really think we close some people tonight. I really think we close some people. Great job. We do this like every week. Like, great job. What would you think of me? What I would think of me is that Sean Callagy's a liar. Sean Callagy pretends to like love and care and say nice words, but he's really not like that. That's what I would think. And you have every right to think that, because it would be completely incongruent. And language, and I learned this again from Tony many years ago, language is vital, carries energy. And as we transform the language we use, it has an energetic impact on how we show up and what happens.
And Sean,
yeah,
Aflac adopted integrity-based human influence, right? Aflac ended up adopting.
Yeah, Aflac, New Jersey sure did. Ray Rastami was the training coordinator. I could contact Ray and ask him the story. Look him up on LinkedIn. Ray Rastami, love Ray. And he created the Callagy, it was before it's called the Unblinded formula, the Callagy Corner. I think they kind of took my intellectual property on my permission. That's a fun story for a different day. But they did create the Callagy Corner, and he became the state training coordinator because he blew up the number of his sales meetings. It was incredible. His acceleration in sales meetings, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm doing what this guy Sean Callagy said to do. And like, who's he? Like, what are you talking about? And so, yes, he became the training coordinator of the state. He went from a commission-only person to having a beautiful salary. He was thrilled, changed his life, all the beautiful things. But Aflac, New Jersey adopted it. And I wasn't selling it, by the way. I was building my law firm by training in this space. And so I was giving away that training and that content that day. I didn't give them permission to use my intellectual property. Again, fun footnote. But it wasn't like I was selling a training program to them. Ray just started teaching people at Aflac what we're doing, and they had an incredible year. Their sales meetings skyrocketed. So yes, Adam, they did. So what is this formula? We say the formula. And when I first started saying this many years ago, and again, we only launched Unblinded 3 years ago as a for-profit venture to coach, train, accelerate. The reason we did, because this is a mission, a passion for me, is because people who pay attention. People who pay attention. I am clear on that now. And I gave away lots of content for more than a decade. I had an original coaching and training company in 2004, 5, 6. I didn't want to continue to do it because I didn't want to work nights and weekends with my kids. It was super successful. We had tons of clients, very much like Unblinded is now. Beautiful things happening. It was different. There wasn't Zooms and those things, but we ran live immersions. We ran telephone group calls, and we ran one-on-one coaching, and it was wonderfully successful. It was the most successful coaching and training company in the history of my coaching school, IPEC. I was certified there 20 years ago, and they were blown away. They wanted to take my content, make me a 50-50 partner at IPEC. I refused for a whole bunch of different reasons, and then I just left that business in somebody else's hands, not able to use my content, and said, I'm going to come back to this 12 years later, as soon as my kids are graduating from high school, and do what we're doing here. In case you're like, well, where have you been? Like, why don't we know more of you? We've only been taking this work forward for the last 3 years. That's why. Callagy Law, different story. That's a beautiful place. I'm much more of a business owner than operator, although there's some really important spaces I'm stepping into a little more actively, because there's beautiful intersections and overlaps with Unblinded currently, particularly in the surgeon space, orthopedic surgeons, brain surgeons, neurosurgeons, that work. Okay, that said, what is this formula? Is it just buzzwords? And the answer is unequivocally not. And I'll kick it to you, Fernando Valencia, for a second. Actually, is Stephanie Bella Anvari Vihan in the building? Okay, if Steph comes back, we'll say
I'm here.
Okay, so Steph,
Yes.
You were an expert in selling. You've been 2 decades in the coaching training space. You were the #1 business broker in the state of Nevada. #1 business broker in the state of Nevada at 24 years old. First woman ever to do it, youngest person, male or female, ever to do it. And you came to this space like, I know marketing and selling, much like Rob Gill did, much like my dear friend Chris Crone did, much like all those fine folks, right?
Yep.
And what did you see here in terms of, and like, let's just go like, running out of time. So let's skip the jokes. Belle and I joke a lot, but what did you see here in this space in comparison to everything else you ever saw in 2 decades in the coaching, training, and sales space?
What I found here, Sean, was a formula. Like it was a linear step-by-step formula that actualized the ability to cause influence. So, I'd always been really good at sales, really good at getting yes, but I didn't understand the how that I was so good at it. And what was here created a duplicatable model for being able to achieve yes. And with that duplicatable model, like the thing that I noticed here compared to everywhere else is that, in every other coaching platform, it is how little can you give and how much can you charge. And here it is the complete opposite. It is how much value can we give for the least amount of investment, right? And I had never seen, I joked the other day that, I love all of these things that we do. Every single day, we are providing some way, some connection for people to accelerate their money, time, and magic. And that's not found anywhere else. Everywhere else, it is like, how much can you charge? How little can you give? And here it is just the complete opposite.
Oh, no, thank you, Steph. And the quality of the influence mastery formula. What say you?
The quality of it is it is holistic. It is from every angle. There's nothing missing. There's nothing you have to figure out on your own. It is a holistic approach. I mean, it has 4 steps, 4 energies, 12 indispensable elements, right? It is simple. It is duplicatable. Mastering all of those different ways, all of those different techniques get you the yes. And I've seen and I've seen over the couple of years that I have been here now, I see the acceleration that people have. Like, people that come in and I think of, Howie is so on my mind right now and in my heart, because, he was kind of a little bit more shy, timid, kind of quiet. Wouldn't be someone that, you'd expect to have a high level of influence. And his mastery over the year, and, he just hosted a Heart of Influence, and the people that he had there, the level that he had there. And that is what is also different about this ecosystem than any other ecosystem, is the level of individuals that are here, the influence that the individuals have here in their own ecosystems, in their own lives. It is not, there's nothing wrong with, coaches and things like that, but that's not what the majority of this ecosystem is. It is people that run associations and hospitals and attorneys and doctors and the things that people that actually have major influence, not an influencer, right? Because there's a big difference between influencer, like hot topic on the internet, and how many followers do you have, versus being a person of influence. And the formula here is that mastery in the influence at a much, much higher level, and just the mastery. And because it is a formula, because it is a step-by-step 4 energies, 4 steps, and 12 indispensable elements, it makes it duplicatable for anyone. Even the meekest of mouses can find their way to mastery and influence.
No, thank you. And the more sophisticated the people, the more this makes sense to. The more sophisticated the people. Andrea Catania, who's in the space tonight, part of Unblinded Elite, Andrea has been involved in 200 plus transactions, many companies taken public, SPACs. She works for a major prominent law firm in New York. She is on the board of NEBA, the National Investment Banking Association, had me be the keynote speaker there this year. This is a woman who raises and causes to be raised billions and billions of dollars. And she's like, there's nothing like this in the world. So I share that with you. I don't know what your level of sophistication is, like where you're at, but Chris Crone, who you saw in the video earlier, his largest raise at an event he'd ever done was $14,000 at an event of his own. And we came in and we raised 2.6 million pledged, 2.1 million collected at the first event that we caused sustainable giving at with Chris. Rob Gill opened 3,000 accounts on Wall Street. And Rob, when I met him, his income, he had made $1 million in a year multiple times, had sunk to about $500,000. His sales meetings monthly were about 8. So he had some residual business, wasn't growing the business. We took his 8 sales meetings through the power of this formula from 8 to 1,500 monthly sales meetings currently. So the space, and there's many more stories, the space is that. So like, what is this formula? Well, there's 4 steps, 12 indispensable elements, 4 energies. And we'll go through it very, very briefly. The 4 steps means that you know where you are in every communication. And if you skip a step, leave a piece out, or you perform suboptimally at a step. So let's be really, really clear. It's not yes, I did it or no, I didn't about anything. I'll repeat that. It's not yes, I did it or no, I didn't do it about anything in the world, about nothing. It's about where am I on the scale of mastery. So we have lots of folks in the program, and we cause people to rate themselves consistently in the 4-12-4 daily. We educate, we coach people, and you could do it after today. And this is not going to be the deepest dive into everything. Obviously, this program is something that we have hundreds and hundreds of hours of content on. But the 4-12-4, you could start rating yourself tomorrow. We're gonna mention every one of them, and you could take a screenshot of what you see, and you could start grading yourself tomorrow and watching you rise, just as our gift for you. So the 4 steps begins with emotional rapport. And what that means is the opening of listening. Now, this is a concept that was first introduced to in the world of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. The challenge in the space of NLP is, how do you create emotional rapport? And what was challenging for me in the space of NLP, and it's wonderful, and there's a lot of great things about NLP for sure. It helps people tremendously. But this work was about, how do you close the leakage in all the systems? So what I found in the space of NLP and other conversations about emotional rapport was, it was much more the indispensable elements than a sequencing in a conversation of how you actually create emotional rapport with every single human being ever, right? Like, that's the key. So I know we have Michelle Fernandez here. I feel weird about this, Michelle, because Michelle is a colleague of Lion. Michelle is preposterously successful. She's a coach, trainer, speaker, philanthropist, entrepreneur, all the beautiful things. And it is outside of my own comfort zone to step into a space of communicating with Michelle and then start assessing Michelle's communication. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't feel great about that at all. But first I want to say hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Sean. It's such a pleasure to be here. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me over. It's the first time that I'm hearing you talk about this. This is amazing. I have so many nuggets that I wrote down thus far, Yeah.
So how about this? Wait, it's that Michelle Fernandez? It's Michelle Fernandez that won Business Mastery, the Michelle Fernandez that is a Lion and Tony Robbins, that won Business Mastery when she wasn't even thinking of doing the competition, shattering fundraising records. That woman who helps people come from other countries around the world to pursue the American dream. It's that Michelle Fernandez?
That's me.
Yes, amazing. So Michelle, how about this? Would you help us? Would you help Fernando and Adam select somebody from the group? Right? Because I love you. We're going to be at Tony Robbins' house together in a few weeks, Michelle and I. And it to me, in the hierarchical dynamics of Michelle and I being super colleagues in the Lion space, it would just feel weird. So Michelle, would you mind helping with Fernando, just picking some beautiful soul out of this group and seeing if they would come up and do an exercise with us?
Absolutely. I would pick Alfred Pizarro.
I love it. Alfred, are you available? AG, Fernando, can we get Alfred unmiked?
He's working on it. Yeah, he's there. Great choice, Michelle.
Awesome, Michelle. And Michelle, are you able, if I bounce a few things back and forth with you, are you able to stay on for a few minutes?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
You're good.
Hey, Alfred. What's up, Alfred?
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Are you up for this exercise?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So let me ask you a question, Alfred. Actually, let's reverse this for a second, please. Well, no, first, where are you from?
I'm from Yonkers, New York, is where I grew up.
Love you. And Yonkers, New York, is kind of a tough area, right? A little bit of, sort of a heart-centered, but a little chip on the shoulder-ness coming from Yonkers, maybe?
I would say you're correct.
Yes, I would say so. Yeah. Listen, I'm from Hudson County, New Jersey, and it's one of the places that would have an even bigger chip than Yonkers, probably on the shoulder for people who come from Hudson County. So, Alfred, how about this? Would you want to create a meeting for me? What's your favorite charity?
Favorite charity? I would say right now, the City of Hope.
City of Hope. Okay. How about this? I'm Sean Callagy. I have a law firm called Callagy Law. There's no Unblinded, none of that. And we have a set meeting. We're introduced by a mutual friend, and we have a 3-minute set meeting between the two of us and your desire is to create an in-person meeting with me so we can have a conversation about City of Hope. Would you be up for this exercise? And I promise I will have complete empathy and respect. precision, directness, but empathy and respect of how we assess it. And it's going to be, you will be the person who will benefit most from tonight if you step into this exercise. But I mean this sincerely. Please feel free to decline, like totally free to not be judged and decline. So would you like to proceed or not proceed, Alfred?
I would love to proceed.
Awesome, brother. Okay. So in a moment, I'm going to go ring, ring. And this is not a cold call. This is an introduction call. Our friend Michelle, your friend Michelle, introduced us together. And this is a 3-minute conversation to cause me to say yes for us to have some type of in-person meeting. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. I'll start. Hello?
Yes. Hi, this is Alfred. How can I help you?
Yeah. No. You called me.
Oh,
This is Sean Callagy.
hello.
Yeah.
Hi. This is Alfred Pizzoro, and I would like the opportunity to have like around 90 seconds of your time. I want to introduce you to something that has been very dear and personal to my heart. I've seen people's lives changed and saved, and I know and I've heard that you could be very influential in teaching and being able to raise capital for something that's going to do immense, a huge.
Click. Yeah. So what Howard didn't do, and let's throw up the formula real quick, right? And I'm not going to be intentionally, you could watch me do this all the time. Seldomly do I hang up. I hung up because something happened and something didn't happen. And if you look at the dynamics of emotional rapport building, it begins with 5 categories of questions. So Alfred and I have no rapport.
Oh.
And there's no question yet, right? So, and in the indispensable elements that you'll see there, smaller QVC, which is, by the way, I can't see any of this. Just watch how this is in my nervous system just for a split second to know this isn't like something we made up a minute ago. I've been teaching this for 25 years. Emotional rapport building, pain, truth, pain, and yes. Heroic unique identity, agreement formation, step 1, 2, 3, 4. The 12 indispensable elements, smaller QVC, scarcity, matching and mirroring, acknowledgement, level 5 transformational listening, loving people and conditional boundaries, emotional and gender transference, reciprocity, question mastery, validation, congruence, context, contrast, the 4 energies, fun, aspirational, goddess use. The 20 dynamics of influence, 4 steps surrounded by the 12 indispensable elements with the energetic transferences at appropriate times of fun, aspirational, goddess use. That's the mechanism. That's how Tony Robbins wins the game of everything. Is how Oprah Winfrey, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. You go, Bill Gates doesn't speak like Tony Robbins. The heck he doesn't. It doesn't sound in all the ways the same, but if you take it down to its bare essence, this is what these people do. Everyone, every single person. So Alfred, let's try it again.
Okay.
And let's ask for I love the fact that you mentioned 90 seconds. I might, instead of saying 90, I might say we have 3 minutes already. So actually, let me support real quick. So let's reverse for a second. You be Sean, I'll be Alfred. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Yeah.
This is
Hi. Yeah. Hi. Oh, Sean, this is Alfred. Is it still a good time for our 3-minute conversation that we had scheduled?
Yes, I have an calendar. Thank you.
Yeah. Listen, thank you very much, Sean. I really appreciate it. I'm going to honor your time and be complete in 3 minutes. Would it be okay, first, if I asked you, why did you accept this phone call in the first place? I'm super grateful. Thank you for accepting it, but why did you accept it?
I heard that you had a cause that I thought might be worthy. And when it was set up by Michelle, I wanted to take the call and hear what you had to say.
Wow. Listen, I'm deeply honored. I can't even imagine how many people call you up and ask you for money. And here's my commitment to you. I am not calling you to ask you for money. You have my word. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. So in the final 2.5 minutes we have or so, can I ask you 1 or 2 other quick questions?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I understand that you have this model called sustainable giving. I am present to the fact that you have so many folks that you've created connections and relationship with. It's fascinating. I know you're blind and you have this deep heart of philanthropy. I hear very consistently. So can I ask you, what's the driving why? Been on your website, read this stuff. I hear this thing about causing leaders to cause leaders. But can I ask, like, really, like, what is it that keeps you driving forward? Because the way it looks, you're working like 16 hours a day. Like, what's the why, Sean, that keeps all of that going?
I want to be able to bring leaders, to cause ecosystem mergers, and where 100 turn into a trillion, to make an impact in the world of change with integrity and truth.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. I feel your heart on that. I feel your presence to it. But what's the why behind that? Like, I hear that, but why do you want that?
Because I was given a gift. I have a gift, and if I didn't use it, it was something that was taught to me when I was a child. My mother always said, and it's in the good book, it says that we should not hide our talents. We should go out and not bury them, but go out and use them. So I'm doing what I can to make a difference in the world.
Wow. So what I'm hearing you say is that you want to serve God and your higher power. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, you are.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So then from that place, would it be okay if I shared a couple quick things that may or may not resonate in our final minute together?
Absolutely. You have me curious, please.
Yeah. So City of Hope, like many charitable causes, is struggling. It's a beautiful cause, great people. And what it needs, Sean, is it needs a tremendous overhaul. And I think that that's something that you do. And of course, I am sure that you're continuing in your mission for growth, continuing to look to impact leaders. And I'm sure many charitable causes ask you to help out. So I would never just ask you for the favor. What I would propose to you is a 30-minute meeting. If I could, by Zoom or come to your office, I'd be happy to bring sandwiches or take you to lunch, but I want to honor your time. And during that conversation, I'm going to demonstrate to you why I think this would be worth your time. Because there's some people who are leaders of very influential associations. There's a couple major accounting firms that are part of City Hope. And these folks deeply want to meet you, and they want to create speaking opportunities and deep relationships. And I think that there's something really potentially here. And oh, by the way, there's one more thing. Tanya Freeman is also on our board. She's on the board of University Hospital, which of course is New Jersey's #1 trauma center. I know you do a ton of work for Callagy Law with hospitals, but this woman was recently voted the #1 most influential woman in healthcare in New Jersey. And this is a person who very much wants to meet you as well and do more. So thank you for your time. I promise you I would not be asking you to write a check, because I've heard some of your videos and you say, don't fall in love with your charitable cause, fall in love with the people who are going to support it and find ways to add value to them. So that's how I approach this phone call, Sean. So how does having a follow-up 30-minute meeting resonate with you or not?
Look forward to putting it on my calendar.
Thank you. Pause. Michelle, how'd I do? You are a sophisticated person of success in the world. How was that phone call?
Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm going on that lunch too. I want to go too.
Actually, that lunch is going to be set, Sean. That is going to be a meeting you're going to be having one day.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. So let's play with this now for a second. We're going to break it down through the 412 for in a minute, but I'm going to reverse it. And now I'm going to ask Alfred a few questions. So, hey, Alfred, you grew up in Yonkers, or born in Yonkers. How long did you stay there?
I was there until I left to play football. I got a scholarship down at Fort Hill Military Academy. I also failed geometry my freshman in high school. And they said, my dad said I can't play football if I don't pass it. So I passed.
Amazing. So, Alfred, can I ask you this? What became of your military career?
Well, there was some unique things. I actually, when the boys died, I had a football team over in Okinawa. I was in charge of all special services, and we played, but they were the 9th Marines, and they got blown up in Beirut, Lebanon. Every one of them died. So I got Bob Hope to be to come and raise capital, made him an honorary general, and we raised $250,000 for the families. And I got the Naval Achievement Medal for doing it. But it was heart-centered because I knew every one of those boys.
Alfred and everybody here tonight, 100% I had no idea. 100% I had no idea that Michelle was going to pick Alfred. Michelle, did I tell you to pick Alfred? Did I even know you're going to be here tonight?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Alfred, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for fighting for and protecting our freedom. Thank you for enlisting one of the greatest celebrities of all time, Bob Hope, as an honorary general, and for doing the incredible act of raising $250,000 for your fallen brothers. And I hear your heart still aching for them. Brother, am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, sure.
And what year was this, Alfred?
1986, we had the event. So it was back in 84. It's a while ago. But
yeah, no, I mean, what I'm
still
saying is
present.
$250,000 in 1984 would be well over $1 million today. It's unbelievable. And of course, it's still present. You lost people you loved and cared about. People that had in common with you sacrifices that most humans simply cannot understand. Am I tracking?
Yes,
Oh, well, thank you,
very
brother.
much.
So let's pause and go out of the role play for a second, out of this connection with Alfred. Please stay here for a second, Alfred.
Okay.
And let's put the slide back up, Tink. Okay. Stephanie Vihan, also known as Bella Verita. Bella.
Yes.
And/or Fernando, and/or, okay, Bella's there. How often do I communicate with people one-on-one, and do they cry?
I would say probably 90% of the time. 90% of the time when you're communicating with people, you can cause them to cry.
In my first appearance on Chris Crone's stage, he's a friend. He's got like 1 million followers online on YouTube, 1 million followers on Instagram. And Chris was building a platform. We again met in the Tony Robbins world. Cannot overstate my gratitude for all that world has brought to my life. And I told Chris, Chris like, oh, it's cute. You have this like sales thing. And I'm like, brother, I love you. We become good friends. If you ever say that again, we're throwing down. This is not some sales thing. This is how human beings connect to the deepest levels. And I said, I'll tell you what, I will give you $100,000 if I speak on your stage and the first 2 people I call up are not crying within 2 minutes each. And one will be a man and one will be a woman. Tink, Nicole, Myello, you were in the room for it. What happened in the first 2 people we brought up on Chris Crone's stage?
Of course they cried beautifully.
Yeah. And the whole point of this isn't that you're trying to make people cry. I didn't try to make Alfred cry. I didn't even know any of those things. But the mechanism and the formula of emotional rapport building and the entire 12 indispensable elements and the 4 energies speaks into how to cause what Oprah Winfrey said. I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters to me. I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters to me. And so what I'm listening for is everything that everyone says. And I just out of curiosity, Michelle, jumping on a roll, were you surprised? I don't know if you're surprised, but were you that certain that I would know and remember that many things about you?
No, I was surprised.
Yeah. Because what I'm listening for in the power of the formula with everyone are the beautiful, unique, congruent things they do.
Mhm.
And how about this, Michelle? I know your family is full of entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
I know that you came to this country and didn't speak the language.
Yes.
I know that your family's created entrepreneurial impact internationally. and that your brother has done some remarkable things that you are deeply, deeply proud of. Am I
Yes.
remembering that correctly?
Yes, absolutely.
And that you love your family and have great humility, but also great pride in how your family has approached business, teaching family members about business, and how you create economic impact and philanthropic impact. That is a core part of you. Am I hearing you correctly?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And what if we related to all human beings that way? And so Alfred, when Alfred is sharing, what if we related to the person who drives an Uber, who cleans a bathroom, who serves our food at a fast food place, if you go to a fast food place, or a server in an expensive restaurant? What if we relate to everyone that way? What if we related to adversaries in legal proceedings, at least initially that way? At least initially, until they teach us to relate otherwise. And that we never stop loving people. I have 2 top 100 national jury verdicts. In both cases, I prayed for our adversaries every single morning with my mother on the phone, who taught Bible study in prison for 10 years. I'm not saying that to have you think better of me. I'm saying it to you because it's part of our indispensable elements to love people unconditionally with boundaries. These people tried to put me in prison. They tried to get me disbarred. If they could have murdered me, they would have murdered me. It's the largest jury verdict of the last decade, 8.5 years in the state of Arizona. And if they could have killed me, they would have. I know that for a fact. Longer stories for a different day. And they were afraid to do it. Like this, and these are the people, I knew these things were present, that I was praying for, that they weren't going to make me destroy them. And eventually, in a case they offered $0, we got a $27 million verdict, 8 figures in compensatory damage, 8 figures in punitive damages. And we put them into bankruptcy and collected out all the money tax affected and had our foot on their throat. And if I would have flexed my pinky toe, would have broken their neck, figuratively. And that is the power of this formula on its aggressive side. But all of that is always designed to drop back into our hearts and into alignment. So from the beginning, in emotional rapport building at step 1, what I'm listening for is based in the fact, this is level 5 listening, that no one says anything for no reason. Said differently, everyone says everything for a reason. Everyone. Everyone hesitates for a reason. Everyone avoids for a reason. Everybody sequences and emphasizes in a certain order for a reason. And the ability you have with level 5 listening as you go through the 4 steps, because the indispensable elements are omnipresent, they are present for every part of everything. Those steps. The listening is like mind reading. It's what mentalists do. So this is a really accessible thing. I'm not talking about actual telepathy. I'm talking about the ability to truly know to a 95% plus degree of certainty if people are telling you the truth or lying to you, what people are avoiding and uncomfortable with, what people are proud of and excited by, what makes them feel passionate, loving, adventurous, free. How much do we know about Alfred already? And why did Alfred come right out of the box when I said, hey, like, where'd you grow up? And all of a sudden he's telling me about football, which we haven't even spoken into yet. Other than the fact that I guess we did, because he played football in Okinawa.
Actually, to be transparent and truthful, I put on the Okinawa Super Bowl. They played it. It was something, and that's for another time, another story. But I wasn't playing at the time, but I had all the generals. We're all there, and we were losing 21-0 in the first quarter. I almost had a heart attack. I mean, I was going to take equipment off of them and go in the game. As a matter of fact, I did. I went in the locker room and said, give me a helmet. If you're not going to play the second half, then I will. And we beat them 34-21. That was the Air Force. It was the Marines.
Demonstration proof positive. I could write 300 pages on Alfred already. So Alfred, you have a lot of pride in who you were as a football player growing up, don't you?
I was all state in New York. I mean, I was actually second team, but I was all state, and we did pretty good for a little bunch of small Italians and Jewish kids from Roosevelt High School. So Coach DiMatteo was a great coach.
Yeah. And before you said it, I was about to say, and you loved your high school football coach, didn't you?
I did. I do. He's still here.
Yeah. And how do you feel about being Italian?
I feel pretty good about it.
What does it mean to you?
Well, I think it's a great heritage. I happen to be Sicilian, so people are very, very touchy. You know what I mean? The Italians don't always claim us, but the thing is, they have heart, and you're either in or you're not. They're very interesting people, but they definitely know how to cook. So.
Yeah. And so if you are present to level 5 listening, what you realize is that Alfred loves his heritage, has an unbelievable sense of history, had amazing experiences with Coach D. Was Coach D, right?
Yeah, that's what we called him, Coach D.
Coach D. I heard you say that even though you didn't say it. Coach D, as at Roosevelt High School. You have unbelievable memories of your teammates at Roosevelt High School and had interesting and beautiful relationships where I'm sure the Italian kids and the Jewish kids made fun of each other, but built great and powerful relationships together as well.
On the field, we were one, and we took that off the field. So we were brothers.
And you're very proud of that because it's unique at that time.
Yes.
For Italian kids and Jewish kids in the city to get along, isn't it?
It very much was. And we did, the two captains, he actually came across Joe Holland, run 200 yards a game, actually ran 245 yards against Harvard, and they made the Holland rule. But his dad was my mentor. His dad was, he was the first black man to play at Cornell, and they won the national championship. Actually, they beat Michigan, Ohio State. They've never lost to them, and they'll never play them again. So they're the only team to ever have a winning record against both Michigan and Ohio State. Happens to be Cornell. And my son played there as a tight end years later, and that's what he was, a tight end and defensive end. So God has a nice sense of humor.
Let's go Big Red.
Let's go Big Red. We get to play Columbia every year now. It used to be Penn. Now we play the city tournament. So maybe we'll go one day.
Yeah. This is what it sounds like when you provide somebody you're listening. How good did that feel, Alfred, to share all those things you just shared? And how deeply did you feel you were being listened to?
It's amazing. It really is.
When's the last time, and I'm asking very authentically, outside of any unblinded space, when's the last time you felt that deeply listened to? The presence of listening and caring about what you had to say at that level. When's the last time you experienced that?
Maybe never.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. And that's why I do this work. You're a beautiful soul, brother. You are a beautiful soul. And I'm not just saying that. Thank you for everything you did for this country. Thank you for the losses, the sacrifices, the things no one will ever know and most people could never even begin to understand. Thank you for the courage and vulnerability of jumping up here tonight. And for everybody here tonight, we're going to round it out in a minute. We did not get through the bulk of the content, but we drilled deeply into the most powerful beginning of everything. When you ask people, where have you been? Where you are, where you are going, what is working and what are the challenges, and you listen at level 5, represented by the acknowledgments you give, the questions you ask deeper into the energy presented by the other person, you need to promise, please, that you will use this superpower with integrity. Because the ability, Alfred and everybody, the ability it creates, you could hurt people incredibly. The vulnerability you create, the depth of connection, I protect people from me. Because the addictive quality of level 5 listening with its accompanying acknowledgments and validations is exactly what Alfred just so beautifully said. We don't see it, it doesn't happen. So Alfred, brother, love you, thank you, and look forward to more, bro. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. Michelle, your critiques on tonight so far, like we're going to wrap up in a minute. Like you had maybe no idea what's happening here. I don't know. I'm so curious, like to what your listening of tonight is.
My heart is melting, Sean, because you touched on something that is so powerful tonight. The ability to listen. Most people talk much more than listen. And listening the way you're listening, the demonstration you've done tonight here, my heart is melting. I want to know more. I want to listen to more, you know, I really do. And I'm so grateful to be here tonight and to have participated on this and to have witnessed it the way that you conduct the questions, you know, for people to open up. Thank you for sharing, Alfred. So beautiful. Like I'm deeply touched.
Michelle, you've taken such a beautiful position of leadership in the Lions. You care so much, and I do believe there's so much for us in that organization to do together powerfully. I am deeply touched by your presence tonight. I am grateful. This is a woman who is of a 0.001% success in America. It's an incredible woman. And to just show up here tonight, thank you, Michelle. You represent the heart-centered growth mindset that Tony Robbins speaks of and embodies. And to me, the purpose of what being a lion is. So thank you for being an inspiration tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.